for those of you who are listening by delay and are going to listen to this after it was live, you're probably hearing this because we are on. But there's a little bit of delay for those who are tuning in live, so I'll be introducing my guest in just a moment, and that is going to be Kermit Smith from Appalachian, and I will bring him into the conversation in a moment. And I'm seeing now that we are live, so I will make sure that you can see the graphic and see that our guest today is Kermit Smith. He's the head baseball coach at Appalachian State University, and he's a native of Arcadia, Florida, where my parents spend January, February, and March every year. So I know Arcadia, and I actually went there last year, and we'll talk about that at some point. He played at Pfeiffer, probably back when it was Pfeiffer College, maybe it was Pfeiffer University when he was in college, and almost immediately he became an assistant coach in college and almost immediately became a head coach at Belmont Abbey, and then he moved on from there to Lander University, where I coached at one time too. And then ever since 2016, he became the head coach at Appalachian State, which is my alma mater where I played. So Kermit and I have a lot in common, and our lives are twisted together whether we like it or not. But fortunately, we do like it. He's had 3 teams go to the World Series at the Division II level, one at Belmont Abbey, 2 at Lander, and he has over 500 wins, even at a very young age, as a head coach. And he's had numerous players that he's coached that go on to play professional ball. But most important to me, he's a great friend. He's a great family man. His wife, Rebecca, and his 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter. I hope that you will stick around and listen to this because I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Kermit Smith from Appalachian State. Kermit, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, buddy. It's fun to listen to all those, I call them God winks, but, all those little areas that we're connected in, through this beautiful game. But more importantly, through life, it's kind of crazy that our relationship is what it is, but all the connections that we've had along the way.
And it really did, because we didn't know each other great. Early on I'd met you a couple times, and then when you coached at Belmont Abbey, you came to Lander to play. We didn't know each other real well, and I honestly wish that I knew then what I know now, because I think we could have been a lot closer all those years that I didn't know you all that well. But I think honestly, Kermit, I got to know you the most. I mean, of course, we knew of each other and always been cordial, but when you took over at Lander and did what you did at Lander. And for those who are listening, I was fortunate enough to be the first head baseball coach at Lander in the fall of '97, spring of '98 was our first team ever. Um, and Kermit would eventually, a couple coaches later, take over there and was tremendously respectful of what had happened with the inaugural team and with me, and wanted to incorporate us. I threw out the first pitch down there one time before a game, and you've done that at every college that you've coached at. So first of all, I'll just ask you about that. As a baseball coach head coach at 3 different colleges, how important is it for you to incorporate and include the tradition that's gone on before you, the alumni that's been there and played, and the coaches that have coached before? You've done a great job of that. Why is that so important to you?
I think just at its core, it's not my baseball program. At the moment that I, have arrived at those 3 stops, there's way more people have invested a lot more time than I have at that juncture. I don't really have a great analogy for you. It's not like I'm renting it or anything else. It's just I happen to be leading a program that people are very proud of, and I wanted to be clear that it's our program and that it's not, my program. So I think just at its very core, that's just my personal feel, is even though I'm the head coach at those 3 spots at those times, it's not my program. It's our program. And, as successful as they wanted it to be when they were playing there, or a previous coach wanted it to be when he coached there, I equally wanted to be that successful, and uh, you know, do everything we can to try and be the best team in the country. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. Any relationship, whether it's a head coach to a former player or a current player, I think those relationships are a two-way street. And I think that people are very willing to meet halfway on that. And but it does take two. Obviously it takes way more than two, but for a relationship, it takes two people to want that to be successful. So you're giving me the credit for it here, where I'm not really the one that needs the credit for it. It's so many people that wanted those three programs to be great. There's a huge contingent at Appalachian State of former players and fans and coaches that, want this to be as successful as I want it to be. And it was the same at Lander, and it was the same at Belmont Abbey. And I was fortunate in all three of those stops that, for instance, at Belmont Abbey, there was a former coach there named Ted Crunkleton. He's since been inducted into the Gastonia Sports Hall of Fame, and I think the Belmont Sports Hall of Fame as well. And he and I had a great connection. So I felt like that resonated with all of his former players. And then you just spoke about mine and your relationship,
Yes.
and you were the very first coach ever at Lander. And so I think that mine and your relationship made it very easy for the players that you coached to buy into us being successful. And one of my head coaches in college was Chris Pollard, who was arguably the best coach that's ever coached here. And tied with him is probably Jim Morris, who I have a great relationship with.
Sure.
So between Coach Pollard and Coach Morris, I didn't play for Coach Morris, but our relationship is very, very good. He was your coach as well, and I think that connection there is obviously a good one. But I think that between the relationship that I have with previous coaches at those stops and the relationships that I have with that I want with the former players that have played at those institutions, I think that's an easy transition for me.
And we, on behalf of all the App State graduates, alumni of the baseball program, we really appreciate that. You went overboard last fall when we were there for our 35th anniversary of our 1984 Southern Conference Championship team, and we went out on the field, and you arranged most of that. I know you had some help, but we go out on the field, and we're on the big jumbotron, and who's right in front of us taking pictures? You down on the field with us, and we really appreciate it. I know that Coach Morris does. Anytime somebody's remembered for something in the past, and he obviously laid the groundwork at App State for all that happened later, and you've been very respectful of that, and we appreciate it, and we're glad you're in charge. So now, just one quick question: do you ever just wake up one morning and think, I'm the baseball coach at Appalachian State, one of the best universities in America, and I get? Does it ever just like all of a sudden hit you? It used to hit me occasionally when I was at different stops along the way, Lander being one of them. Like, I get to do this. Or I was at Gardner Webb all those years, and I grew up loving Gardner Webb, and there were days I just kind of looked around and said, "Goodness, I'm the baseball coach at Gardner Webb." Has that ever happened to you in some moments?
Oh yeah, I mean, if it doesn't happen right when I wake up in the morning, and that drive to work, or looking out in the front yard, or whether it's just passing Samaritan's Purse, we're driving through downtown, driving on the Parkway to drop my kids off, being in Blowing Rock or being in Boone. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of times you just kind of have to pinch yourself. I really couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
That's great, and I appreciate that. Now I'm going to go back a little bit. We're going to talk some baseball, and for those who are listening, we are definitely going to incorporate Kermit's very strong faith in the Lord and our brotherhood that we have spiritually as well. And that's intertwined with our baseball stories. I want to go back to Belmont Abbey. You just finished at Pfeiffer playing for Chris Pollard, the legend, who's now the head coach at Duke, who was at Appalachian State, and was a good friend of mine. I spent some time with him before he interviewed at App State, trying to help prep him a little bit. He was a lot younger then, and really probably didn't need my direction, but I gave it to him anyway. So you played for him, you go to Belmont Abbey to be an assistant. There's some kind of change or turnover, and lo and behold, you become a head baseball coach in college at 23 years old. You're in a solid Division II program there at Belmont Abbey. How did you transition to that at 23, being in charge of a college baseball program? Did it make you grow up real quick? I know you were always a very mature person anyway, but how did you handle that being that age?
Sometimes I think I handled it really good. Sometimes I think I handled it really bad. But yeah, I think growing up quick is that's a great way to put it. It's funny as you get older, you realize how much you didn't know even the year before. I think they call that wisdom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think what I lacked in wisdom back then, I probably made up for in in confidence. it was not justified, but yeah, I think I think at that time I think I flipped the switch pretty quick, and probably too much sometimes and too harsh sometimes, but made it known that I was very capable at a young age to be those young men's head coach, and wasn't always directed the right way. But I wanted to make sure that there was a strong division between um, the head coach and the players. A couple of players on the team were older than I was, and I
Wow,
wanted it
I
to
did
be
not know that. That's incredible.
and I wanted it to be very, very clear that I was in charge, and again, lacking wisdom, I didn't always do that the right way. But I was fortunate to have a very good administration there that trusted me and allowed me to make mistakes, and allowed me to make good decisions as well. But yeah, I was very fortunate to have gotten a start there and to have been given time to establish a program where I probably just as easy could have not been given that opportunity to either receive the job or to have time to make the program what I thought it could be.
Which,
And
which
so
you were, go ahead, because I want to ask about those years when you first started. Go ahead and finish your thought, and I want to ask you about that.
yeah, I just think that the administration probably deserves as much credit as anybody during that time. And yeah, I think that was a big thing.
Well, you're always giving credit to other people, and that's one of the reasons you're one of my favorite coaches and people. So what ended up happening if you look at your career at Belmont Abbey is y'all had a great first season, and then there were some, I don't want to say lean seasons, but not as well for 4 or 5 years. Then all of a sudden y'all were just fantastic in like 2008, and I think 2009 is when you took them. Did you ever question yourself during those years after that first year when the winning records weren't there, and say, "Hey, what have I gotten myself into? Am I doing something wrong? Am I capable?" Or did you stick with the plan the whole time?
No, I can remember a day that my wife and I were sitting in Cracker Barrel, and we had just blown a pretty good lead against Wingate, and I think we scored 9 in the first and ended up losing the game. And I remember sitting in Cracker Barrel talking to her and just having a real sincere conversation, just wondering if this was even something that I was, still being called to do. And her confidence in me and our discussion and communication through that obviously, led us to continue down that road, and still felt like it was a calling. And um, a lot of better days past that day, but no, there was some dark days during those times, and whether it be through our performance on the field, or whether felt like we were being funded correctly, or whether our assistants were being paid enough, or so
Yeah,
many different things. But no, I think questioning it would absolutely. Yeah, I think that I think if you're not looking in the mirror, then you're not evaluating where you currently are, or you're not being honest with yourself. So yeah, there was a lot of look in the mirror moments during those times, but that one specific, and that I could take you to the very table that we were sitting at.
really
We're in Gastonia, and we're at
incredible.
that Cracker Barrel, and I could probably tell you how long the wait was, and where we were seated, and I can't remember what I had to eat because I don't think I ate very much that night. But I know I was looking across the table at a beautiful woman who had a lot of confidence in me, and who was, joined in the pursuit of this being our mission field. And I've always been very thankful for that.
It's great. And so your mission field after Belmont Abbey took you to the great metropolis of Greenwood, South Carolina, at Lander University. And I don't have I can't say enough good things about my experience at Lander and my family in Greenwood, and Jeff May being the athletic director that hired me and then eventually hired you. Tell me what was so special about Lander University to you and the baseball program and the community, and why it was such a good fit for you.
Yeah, I think so many things happened through those years. I love Legion Field. I think that was um, such a cool venue to play college baseball. And even trumping that, they built a brand new facility down there. I think in our second or third year after we got there. So it, a lot of things merged during those times. So our first recruiting class, we recruited to Legion Field. They trained and played 1 to 2 seasons out there, and then we got to move over to multi-million-dollar baseball field over at the Jeff May complex. And I think just kind of all that kind of coming together there. Those boys growing up at Legion Field and very blue collar, very they had a vision. There's something special about those first recruiting classes that believe in the mission of where you're heading and your viewpoint and what they want to accomplish. And those boys came in there and did it, and then we got to do it at a great facility, and you kind of saw the confidence growing as we started achieving things. First, just in a couple wins here and there. Next thing you know, we're kind of winning on a regional level, and then we're winning on a national level. There was ups and downs through that. It wasn't just hey, this is really easy. Let's come in here and made a regional in 2012, and then we went to the World Series in 14. But those growing pains in 2013. There was a point in 2013 where we were ranked #1 in the country,
Yeah.
and we didn't even make the regional. And that's that's a big blow. But if it hadn't been for that, then I don't know if we'd have been quite as motivated in 2014 to do what we did. And then 2015, you come out and coming off a World Series year, lose a huge recruiting class, and we don't even make the conference tournament. And then basically that same team returns in 2016 and goes to the World Series again, which is just, your ebbs and flows through that, which was amazing. And there's so many stories in that. And there's so many, but Legion Field's so linked to all those teams.
Yeah.
That place that, if we're going to talk about first recruiting classes, like your first recruiting class was literally the first team in school history. So I know that really resonates with you as well. So, there's so many cool things that happened there. Our family grew. We after I accepted the job, a couple of days after, we found out that we were pregnant with Beckett, our second child. We already had Maddox, and then while we were in Greenwood, we had our third child, our daughter Georgia Grace, and so our family grew so much while we were down there as well. And lived in a great neighborhood. Lived in a neighborhood with women's basketball coach Kevin Pedersen, who I think is a great coach, and Brett Simpson, who's a tennis coach. He was a Hall of Famer and won national championships there as a player, and he's now the tennis coach there, and he's a very successful coach. So got to learn so much from so many different people down in that area, and just a lot of people poured into our lives and loved on us and really accepted us. And for me, that kind of went through Jeff May, who was the athletic director there at the time, and he was so linked to the university. The university is so linked to, and I feel that way at App State too. But I feel like Lander is Greenwood, and Greenwood is Lander. I feel like that town is the university, and the university is the town. And there's such a cool dynamic with that. When you drive there for the first time, you're spending what, 28 miles off the interstate before you
Yeah.
even get to Greenwood. And, now on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays when we're playing baseball, that's a great thing, because everybody's staying in town and watching us play. But man, there were so many things. There's just so many great people in that town that invested in our lives, and we got a chance to, our family's better, so much better because of it, and the people that invested in us, and those players that believed in a vision to, try to win a national championship at Lander University, and that'll always be a special part of our lives.
And I just remember thinking when I was there at Lander, and I don't want to start really naming names because I'm scared I'd leave somebody out. I could just start and I wouldn't be able to finish my list of people that were special to me. But I remember a couple times I was involved in a church there, and I was in a very big Sunday school class, 50 or 60 people, and they would just have a church gathering up on the hill there at where the locker rooms and everything was, and they would all bring baked beans, which we had a big joke about. Everybody brought beans, and then they would cook out, watch the game, and feed our players after the game. Just really connecting, and they actually led us to. I believe honestly they led us to a comeback one time. We were behind, and all the kids looked up there and smelled that good food and heard those people hollering for them, and we came back and won a game. But I remember waking up and thinking, there's a lot of people coaching a lot of different places, but a Peach Belt Saturday at Legion Field was one of the best places to be because we had great crowds. We had Division I crowds at our games, and the Peach Belt was the best Division II conference in America, probably still is. And I just felt like that was one of the. If I could be anywhere, that's where I wanted to be. And I know you carried that. You had huge crowds too, and you had this pride that went with be putting on that uniform that said Lander. Now I was with the Senators. I think they transferred to the Bearcats eventually, but you wore that well, like I did, with pride, and we always felt like we were second to none when it came to support from the community and from the university. And I know you felt that way too, right?
Man, yeah, Dr. Ball, our president, and Jeff May. Those two guys connected. And the support staff around there was so key. Steve Grogan did a phenomenal job for us. All these guys are still friends to this day. Cheryl Bell, Kathy Cochran. All the people in the infrastructure of what we're doing.
Kent Atkins was a major part of that for us. Kent was Atkins, and then there's just so many. And you named all of those folks were there when I were there, and they kind of raised me because I was still a young coach when I was at Lander as well. Yeah. So we have fond memories. In fact, if you remember when you brought your team from App State to Gardner Webb a few years ago, they all showed up and sat in the middle of the stands and talked to both of us before the game and said, "Hey, we're here to pull for both of you." And it was a great game, and the Apps pulled it out. And I was really happy to see a lot of those guys. Well, let me take you to App State now in 2016, and I remember distinctly having a conversation with you when you were exploring the possibility of being a candidate, and I don't even think you knew I was an App State alumni because we had gotten to the point where we talked a lot by the end, and I reminded you that yes, I was an App State alumni, and I was very content and had been for years at Gardner Webb and felt that was my calling. So I was not a candidate, though I was very heavily interested in who was because I wanted my alma mater program to do well. And I know we had some conversations about that, and I remember when you called me to tell me you had been offered the job, and I remember exactly where I was. I was actually we were at a hospital visiting somebody. I was on the second floor, and I stepped out to take your call and sat on a little couch there. And I remember thinking at the time, Kermit is going to put some energy into this thing again. He is going to rally the base, if so to speak. But number one, he's going to be a class person. He's going to run a first class program, and he's going to be of high character himself. Tell me when you got hired in 2016, I know we talked about you pinching yourself every once in a while, but how did you feel like that was a God thing for you and your family, for you to be named head coach? Came from Division II, and we all know that Division I head coaching jobs attract a ton of Division I assistants. So when you were hired from the Division II level, it's possible you didn't have as much name recognition as some of these other candidates, but the administration took you for many good reasons, and we're ecstatic about that. But just tell me how that whole process went and what was going on in your life
Man, well, coming off 16, uh, we had a really good year at Lander, and I remember the job coming open, and my wife and I communicating. I got a really cool story. Is we the Lakelands FCA, which is the Greenwood FCA,
then? Yep.
chose my wife and I to go to the Billy Graham retreat for coaches, couples, or coaches married couples. It's a marriage retreat for coaches and their families. And so we went. We were all set up to go that summer, and it was the first time since we had our son Maddox that we were going to be taking a trip, just the two of us. So we're pretty excited about that. But kind of right the week of that happening, I received two phone calls. One was from Appalachian State, and one was from another university, and both inquiring. Just kind of talking through the prospects of interviewing, or what have you. And so my wife and I, Rebecca and I, left on a Thursday to go on this weekend trip to the Billy Graham Conference Center up in Asheville. So we're driving up, and we're just kind of talking, and before we get there, we go to a Mellow Mushroom there in Asheville, and it's right in downtown, and we're sitting outside, and kind of feel like we're on vacation. And so we're sitting there talking, and she said, "Babe, we're a long way from this, but let's just go through some what if scenarios here. What if, what if?" And we're very happy at Lander, right?
Yeah.
This isn't something where we had to get out of there or anything like that. We're very, very happy, very content. That treated us great, and all that. And so we just start going through some what if scenarios, and talk about our faith and different things. And right then, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a trip of students or what have you, but an App State charter bus pulls up literally right in front of us.
Here's your
right
sign.
there. And we both just looked, and we didn't even have to say anything to each other. We just laughed. And the weekend was great. We got a chance to share our marriage and strengthen our marriage and invest in each other. And then went through the interview process, and man, it's what a dream it's been. I mean, really, you asked a great question at the beginning of this. Is just, do you ever wake up? What an unbelievable honor to be here. But that process was something that was, you were very involved in it. You really were. You were a great resource for me, to bounce a lot of ideas. I actually talked to you while I was at that retreat.
Oh yeah, okay.
I don't know if you remember that.
I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it was an unbelievable process, and just really good people here. Got to connect with a lot of people who've, just like Greenwood, a lot of people that have influenced my life. Worked for a great athletic director, Doug Gillen, and got to work for Troy Hustis before he retired this past just a couple of months ago. Who's such a great man, such a great mentor, and Jonathan Reeder, who's my sports supervisor now and assistant athletic director. He played here, played for Coach Pollard. Funny story, I actually interviewed him one time for a job at Belmont Abbey. So,
okay. And then he became your boss.
Yeah, so you can imagine my shock when when he reaches out to me about the job here. I kind of think back, and I'm like, oh man, what a small world. Maybe should have hired him back then. So,
yeah, it's interesting. So you're at App State now, and we're ecstatic to have you there. And you've done well. You guys were doing great in 2020. You already won 6 in a row. I followed you a lot and watched a lot of your games on ESPN Plus. And when I could, I watched that very long game at Kentucky that went for, it seemed like 58 innings, forever, when you guys played great. So but I also know you're a man of faith. You're a strong Christian. I don't want to go too much into this, but people should know that you and I have had many conversations had nothing to do with baseball and had to do with our spirituality and make good, hopefully good Christian brothers to each other in a lot of ways. So you're at Appalachian State now, which is a public institution. Um, I was at Gardner Webb, which was a private Christian institution. So the guidelines that I coached by and um, the under the authority of that were different than you. So, how do you incorporate your faith into your program and into your life there at Appalachian State University?
Yeah, I hope I model it. I think that's the biggest thing that I can do on a daily basis is make sure that and you can't answer this question without getting really deep on the subject. Is you and I, right? And when you were coaching and I'm currently coaching, is we're not truly going to know if we did a good job for 20 years.
Right.
We're when our job is to raise these boys up to be men. And, through how do you do that? Obviously, you do that through a lot of communication, a lot of accountability. But I think the number one way you do it is you model it. I try to make sure that my family is very visible at the ballpark. My son's sitting in my office right now, and he's just constantly down on the field. My wife and kids are constantly here, and I bring that up because I think that that's our calling, right? Is our calling is to make sure that first and foremost, I'm a great husband to my wife, or yeah, and I think secondly is that I'm a great father to my children.
Right.
And if I miss those two things, then in my world, the coach part of it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if we win a national championship or we go below 500 if I'm not hitting the mark on those first two. I think my answer is that I think you have to live it every day. I think you have to show what it is you're trying to accomplish. Not only are we trying to win games, but we're trying to do it with fantastic people, and we're trying to make sure that when they do leave here, whether that's 3 years or 4 years, or it's a junior college kid and you get 2 years with him, however long he's here and under your watch, that you're raising him up to be a man. And that when we talked about being a head coach at 23, 24 years old, that wisdom that I didn't have, you're trying to, give that off. You're trying to educate. You're trying to talk to people about, how do you communicate with people when you're having a great day? How do you communicate with people when you're having a terrible day? When we walk into a restaurant as a team, so many things we're going to be judged, right? Like,
Yeah.
How do you sit together? Are you wearing your hat? Are you on your cell phone constantly, or what kind of language are you using? What is the subject matter that you're communicating about? And quite honestly, I would say most of my post-practice conversations are in that arena. They're not even about, hey, we didn't line up correctly on our tandems today, or on our relays today, or alignments. Hey, we didn't get that bunt defense right, or hey, we didn't get that bunt down. Very, very rarely is, or a very small portion of my communication with our team has to do with how we did in baseball that day. Most of it is communication about, hey, how do we respond to this situation in life? We're not just getting good grades to get good grades. We're training ourselves to be, great employees one day, and potentially a great boss one day. How you interact with, your teammates, and how you interact with your coaches, how you interact with your trainers and strength staff and people on campus. You look at just Appalachian State, we're 20,000 plus. There's only 40 baseball players here.
Yeah.
Like, that's what an honor, what a privilege, right? Like, you get an opportunity to walk around campus and take your earphones out. Take your sunglasses off. Don't look at the ground. Don't text constantly. Look up. Look up into other people's eyes, even when they're not looking at you, and ask them how their day's going. And don't just ask them how their day's going. Wait for a response. I think that's really easy to nod and just say, "How you doing?" I think it's a whole different story to nod, ask how they're doing, and wait for a response, and actually care about that. And we talk about being the difference. What is the difference? It can mean a lot of things. Um, but in my world, being the difference is being a light on campus. And what is a light? Well, a light is anything that's not darkness,
Yeah.
right? Is whether, again, the analogy of taking your earphones out, or communicating, or laughing, or enjoying life, and not going through life looking down and looking down at your feet, not talking to people, and not communicating with your professors, and sitting on the back row, and miserable at practice, not wanting to look at your coaches in the eye. We're big on eye contact. We're big on body language. We're big on communicating without our mouths. And I think all those things, whether it's faith, or whether it's, you're talking about being a good person, a great husband, a good husband, a great father, if, and all these things. And a lot of these kids have that modeled for them prior to getting here, so you're re-emphasizing those things. And some of them get here and they don't have that.
Right.
They don't have a model of that. So I think that, how do I do it? I hope I model it every day. Am I perfect in that? Definitely not even close. But everybody's going to be very clear on the fact that I love my wife, and they're going to be very clear on the fact that I love my children. And that's going to be regardless of whether we won that game or we lost that game, or we had a good practice or we had a bad practice. They're going to know for a fact that I treat my staff with respect, right? That when we are on the field, we are a team, right? It is not going to be, hey, why did we throw that pitch, or why did we make that error? It's going to be, we're going to be together. I'm going to treat them with respect, and I'm going to expect the same thing in return. And when it comes to the relationship between player and coach, they're going to know that if I feel like I need to talk about something, that we're going to talk about it when I want to talk about it, right? And that, again, that could be body language, that could be type of language that we're using, that could be how we're treating people, and this whole thing to be cohesive. And I don't mean the whole thing like a Division I baseball program. I mean this whole thing like life, like what we want to see in our world currently, as where we sit, right? Is we want people to be treated as equals, right? Is
Sure.
Regardless of anything else. And I think that when you model that, right, do you work hard? Yes or no? There's not a whole lot of gray area in that, right? As I was tasked with this, I am employed by a university to do something specific, right? I'm going to live up to that every single day in terms of effort, right? You're tasked with being a college baseball player. You need to live up to that each and every day with your effort, right? And your focus. And what is it? It's not just to be an athlete, right? It's to be a great student. Okay, so you're tasked with that. You need to give your very best effort each and every day, right? The resources that you are giving, the resources that you're being blessed with, whether that's a tutor, or whether that's a really good assistant coach that's going to hit with you in the cage, or whether that's a really good trainer who's going to make sure that your ankle's taped, or your doctor's appointment set up, or that's a really good strength coach who's going to be in the weight room with a really good plan for you. Show them the same respect and utilize your resources that you would anyone else. Your parents, your grandparents, your administrators growing up, your current athletic director, your former athletic director. So I guess all that's to say is that starts right here, right? That starts in my seat each and every day, and making sure that I'm modeling the same things that I'm asking of each individual in our program. And I think, over a long enough period of time, I think that, my values and my morals, they're very clear. They're very clear, and that I'm going to be based in family, and I'm going to be based in faith. And, I expect to have really good people representing this great university.
And I can tell you that I am privy to some information as we speak that you're not, and that is the chat area. And occasionally I'll look at it, and your lovely wife has chatted in. I'm quite certain that's her. And maybe she has Facebook, but you're getting bragged on. Like all this stuff you're telling me is apparently true about you, Kermit. You have you have people who will back you on this. But I knew that before I got you on today. I knew that all that was were your priorities in life because we talked about it. And to hear you exemplify that again, just with your words, I can tell people out there, not just ASU fans, uh, that you're one of those good guys. You're one of those good guys that is way mature beyond your years and understanding why you're doing what you're doing, and it's not win at all cost. It's molding young men and their families and having influence at baseball camp or wherever you wear that hat and that title of App State University baseball coach. You're using it for the kingdom, and as you explained, you're doing your role model, and you're doing the Saint Thomas of Aquinas thing, which says witness at all times, use words when necessary. You're doing it with your life, and one of the ways that I wanted to thank you personally, and you know what I'm going to talk about is it meant a tremendous amount to me. I finished in May of 19 for those who didn't know as a and fortunately, Kermit, I've had the opportunity at every stop that I was at middle school, high school, assistant coach in college, junior college coach, Division two, and then at Gardner Webb. I left every one of those schools on my own terms. I was able to decide when I wanted to leave instead of them. And I decided May of 19 that 33 years was enough and went some different directions with my life. And in December of 2019, I was ordained as a pastor, and we had an ordination service, and it was right here in Cleveland County at a little church where I was serving. And I pulled up into the parking lot for the ordination service, and you beat me to the parking lot. Your car was already parked there when I pulled in, and I can't tell you what that meant to me that day for you to have driven 2 hours or more to come and be a part of that very special moment for me, and other people showed up that I was extremely honored to have there. But to have you do that day said so much more than you can ever say with words because it really meant a lot to me because of how much you and I have grown to love and respect each other. I'll use the word love because we're Christian brothers. So what I want to do now as we wrap up is pretty much give you the last word and anything else you'd like to say before I sign us off today.
Oh man, we went down a lot of roads there.
Yeah, I did,
I think
didn't I? I
just
rambled.
yeah, I think I think and this probably resonates with you as well. I think the people that we come across in this journey, ours happen to be coaching, right? Those people that you come across in this college athletics is just such a special opportunity. We have the opportunity to employ assistant coaches that have an opportunity to make such an impact on your life. I've been fortunate to have some great ones. Chris Anderson, you talked about those years at Belmont Abbey, and a few years into that, he jumps on board, and we were able to accomplish a lot of great things. He went with me to Lander and
Yeah.
helped set the foundation for that. Britt Johnson, who's currently with me, joined staff at Lander there, and he's been such a good influence on me. And both those guys, they come into this, and you probably got the sense that our program is very family oriented.
Yes.
It's not going to be show up to work and hey, I'll see you tomorrow. It's a lot of times show up to work and we might see each other for dinner. Might be dropping our kids off at somebody else's house on our staff. So there's a lot of that's integrated within our families. And we've talked about our athletic directors that we've had over the years. That journey is just you're so blessed to have. I guess that God chose you to be on this trajectory, to sit and look back at, starting out in this career, and to think I'm sitting where I'm sitting right now is just, it's totally unbelievable. It's almost impossible to do those things. And this person doesn't come into your life at this moment. This person doesn't say yes to come play shortstop for you, or this person doesn't say yes to come pitch for you, or this person doesn't. And next thing you know, you're sitting here having this conversation. It's just a huge blur, and so many people that have poured into each other, and as a byproduct of that, so many people get to achieve such great things. And I don't know. I guess I don't really know where I'm going with that. It's just this journey is all about the people that you come across, and I've been so fortunate to have so many people that I've come across that have poured into my life, and in turn our family's life, to make it what it is today. And and I know you and I have spoken at great length about this particular subject, but if it doesn't start for me with a great mother and father, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm fortunate to still have my mom living, and my dad's not around anymore. But those two people, I'm reminded daily of the sacrifices that they made for me, to go to college, or to play baseball in the first place, or to go to college and support me in a in a career that doesn't you don't get those that pension isn't real big when you first start out.
Yeah, exactly.
So they look at me and say, what do you want to do after you get your college degree? And I want to go into a career where I'm going to be paid nothing when I first start.
Sure.
Here's a dorm room at Belmont Avenue, to have a set of parents that would support me in that. And it's been such a wonderful journey, and far from done, but looking forward to achieving great things here at Appalachian State. But I'd be remiss if this whole conversation, there's so many people, and I'm fortunate to be on the phone with one of them that have impacted me, which in turn has impacted my family, that I'm blessed to be a part of every single day.
And so I hear over and over in every one of your sentences there, appreciation. You just have a humble appreciation for what has gotten you to where you are, and I know that lovely wife and that family is part of that, and you couldn't have got there with them, and you mentioned that. And I just want to say, as we sign off again, that as an App State baseball alum, that I'm ecstatic to have Kermit Smith as the baseball coach at Appalachian State. And so that does it for this week, folks. And as you may know, our story's His glory. I now do it every other week. I post my devotion on one Wednesday, and the following Wednesday I have a guest for our story's His glory, and that this week was Kermit Smith. Kermit, I'm going to ask you to stay on the line after I sign off, because I want to ask you a question or two about getting some permission to post this on YouTube and some things I got to do legally. But thanks again for being on. I know everybody's been blessed to hear you. So I'll let you tell everyone goodbye, and then we'll roll it on.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome. I always enjoy getting on the phone with you, but this is extra special. So thanks for having me on.
Great. And for those of you, my sign off in 2 weeks. If the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll be back for another edition of Our Stories, His Glory. I hope to see you then, and God bless.